Hello happy crocheters, this is Lindsay from windingrowcrochet.com and today I'm going to show you how to make this pretty beanie. If you like this tutorial, make sure to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. You can also follow me on Instagram and Facebook. So this is the hat we're going to be making. It uses a pretty cluster V-stitch and you can add a pom-pom if you like, but it is not necessary. So let's go over what we need to make this hat. I am using what is left over of the Ogo Red Heart Super Saver yarn. This is a weight number 4 worsted weight yarn in acrylic. I have a pom-pom. I am going to use a size H 5mm crochet hook, but you want to use the crochet hook that meets the gauge. I'm going to use a yarn needle, and of course we need scissors. Let's jump straight into this pattern. We are going to make a slip knot and insert our hook, and we will begin by chaining 8. No matter what size you're making, you're going to chain 8. There is several different sizes for this pattern. I'm going to put the adjustments on the side of the screen when there are some. When you have 8 chain, you are going to single crochet in the second chain from the hook. You can work into this chain any way you want. It's not necessary to work into the back bumps, but you can. I'm going to single crochet in every chain across, which will give me a total of 7 single crochet. Once I've reached the end of row 1, we are going to chain 1 and turn, and you're going to single crochet in the back loop only of every stitch across. So you would normally go under both loops like this, but what we're going to do is we're going to go down the center of the top of the stitch out the back so that only one loop is over our hook, and then we will complete a single crochet. So down the center, out the back, pull up your loop and create a single crochet. And you're going to do this in every stitch across. We're actually going to repeat row 2 until you have the number of rows you need for the size hat you are making. When you reach the end of row 2, we are going to chain 1 and turn and simply repeat row 2. And you're going to repeat it for the number of rows you need for your size hat. For a baby hat, you're going to work 50 rows, a toddler hat 59 rows, child hat 68 rows, a small adult hat 77 rows, and an adult hat you're going to work 83 rows. Check out the written pattern to find out exactly the head circumference for each size hat. So here I've finished working my rows. I am working the small adult size, so I worked 77 total rows. I'm going to fold the brim in half, and we are going to slip stitch the first and the last row together. To do this, you want to first make sure that you're not twisted, that your brim is straight. We are going to put our hook into the back loop only of the first stitch and into the other side of the turning chain of row 1. Then you'll yarn over and pull through all the loops on your hook to create a slip stitch. Moving to the next stitch, we're going to go into the back loop only. You can go under both loops, it's completely up to you, but I like the back loop only. I'm going to go into that turning chain, yarn over, pull through all the loops on my hook. And sometimes you have to work through one loop at a time. And you're going to keep repeating this all the way across until your brim is joined. So here we are all joined. This is our seam, so we want to turn our work so that that seam is on the inside and that we are going to be looking at the outside of the hat as we crochet. So I'm going to chain 1 and turn, and I am going to work 1 single crochet into the side of every brim row. So since I worked a total of 77 brim rows, I want to make sure I work a total of 77 single crochets. And that should work as long as you are working 1 single crochet into the side of every row. Of course, if you're making a different size, you're going to have a different number of single crochet in this row. But again, it should be exactly the same number of brim rows you worked in the first part of this pattern. Just keep single crocheting all the way around. When you make it all the way around, you are just going to slip stitch to the very first single crochet to finish your body row 1. Now that we've completed body row 1, we're going to start body row 2. We're going to chain 1, and what I like to do is chain 1 and then pull up on my chain. And this is my turning chain, which I do not count as a stitch, but doing it this way seems to really hide the turning chain. I'm going to double crochet into the very first stitch. Then we are going to skip a stitch, and we're going to work a cluster V-stitch into the next stitch. So you're going to yarn over, insert your hook in the next stitch, and pull up a loop. 3 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over and pull through 2 loops. Yarn over again, go back into the same stitch, and pull up a loop. You should have 4 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over and pull through 2 of them. Yarn over one more time and pull through 3 loops on our hook. We've created a cluster stitch. Now we're going to chain 1 and work another cluster stitch into the same stitch. So yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 3. That is our cluster V-stitch. We're going to be repeating this all the way around, but first we need to skip 2 stitches. So skip 2 stitches and then work a cluster V-stitch. So we're working our first cluster stitch, yarn over, go into the same stitch, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 3. We're making a chain 1 and working another cluster stitch. So there are 2 cluster V-stitches. You're going to skip 2 stitches and work another cluster V-stitch, and then skip 2 stitches and work a cluster V-stitch, and do this all the way around the project until you only have 2 stitches left. When we have 2 stitches remaining, we're going to skip the next stitch and double crochet into the very last stitch. So we're beginning our row and ending our row with a double crochet. Now we are going to slip stitch to the very first double crochet to join our rows. So here's what it looks like all the way around. Now for body row 3, we're going to chain 1 and pull up to create that turning chain. We're going to double crochet into the first stitch. This is going to be our repeat row. We are going to work a cluster V-stitch, but this time into that chain 1 space in the center of the previous cluster V-stitch. And we're going to do that in every chain 1 space all the way around. So we're going to yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 3, chain 1, again, cluster stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 3. Now we are going to continue working a cluster V-stitch in every chain 1 space around our project. We will be skipping stitches, but that doesn't really matter as long as you are focusing on working your cluster V-stitches into the chain 1 spaces. Your pattern should be fine. So I made a cluster stitch. I'm going to chain 1 and make a second cluster stitch into that chain 1 space. And I'm just going to keep repeating that all the way around my project. When you reach the end of the row and you work a V-stitch in your last chain 1 space, now we just need to double crochet into the very last stitch. Once you have your double crochet worked, we are going to slip stitch to the very first double crochet And that will finish body row 3. Now we are just going to repeat body row 3 until your hat is as tall as you would like it to be. I'm going to put up the recommended rows for a basic hat on the side of the screen for whichever size you are making. Make sure to notice that these are the total body rows for your project, and we did work one single crochet body row, so make sure to count that as well. Of course, this is just a basic hat. If you want a slouchy hat, feel free to add 2 to 3 more rows to add a little more slouch to your hat, or simply work until the hat is as tall as you would like it to be. So for this size hat, I have completed 14 body rows, and now I'm ready to fasten off and gather the top of the hat. You are going to want to leave yourself about 15 inches of yarn end when you clip your yarn, but I'm going to clip mine a little closer because I'm going to use a contrasting color yarn to show you how I like to gather up the top of my hat. I'm going to be using this red yarn instead of using the gray from my hat. So definitely make sure to leave yourself about 15 inches of a yarn end. You're going to yarn over and pull your yarn in all the way through that last loop. Take a yarn needle and thread the yarn end through that yarn needle, and we are going to use the star method to close up the top of this hat. Again, I'm using the red instead of my yarn end. So what you would start where your yarn is attached to your hat, and starting at that point, that's going to be the first point of our star. So I'm just taking mine through here so I can create the star pattern. Trying to position this so you can see what I'm doing as nicely as possible. So we're going to take our yarn where it's attached right here where we fastened off. I'm just pulling mine through. And then I'm going to go up to the top of my hat. And I'm just acting as if I am drawing a star. So then I am going to go down, creating a A shape or a arrow shape at this point. Just going to pick a stitch to go through down here. Now I'm going to go off to one side and then the next. So cutting in between the 2 points on this side, kind of the halfway mark, coming across the front horizontally and cutting that other piece in half, and then coming back down to my first point. And what you'll do from here is just pull until everything is pulled tight, and what you will get is 5 folds. Ideally you want to have 5 even folds, but sometimes they aren't, and you might have to retry your star in order to get them a little bit more even. They don't have to be perfectly even, but you just don't want any one particular fold to be larger than the other. So just pull on your yarn end until all of those points are pulled into the center. So here you see I have my 5 points pulled into the center, and it gives me 5 folds. And mine are pretty even, so I will go ahead and continue with the next step, which is just another star gather. I'm going to take my yarn and I'm first going to take it out into one of my points. So I'm just going to come out to this point here, from the center to here, and then once again we are going to draw a star. So I'm going to skip the first fold on my right and go into that top fold and just hook through a stitch. I'm going to skip another fold, come down to this bottom left hand fold. Going around in a circle, I'm skipping a fold and coming to the right hand side again. So I've skipped that fold. I'm skipping the top fold and going to the left hand side again, going through a stitch there. You can see how I'm drawing a star. Skip a fold and go back down to our first point. And then I'm going to pull it tight, and it's going to pull all those folds into the center, leaving our hat nice and neatly folded at the top. which I really do think this looks nice just as it is. It does not need a pom-pom, but I love pom-poms, so let's go ahead and add one. And you can even see that with my red thread, that's more of a contrasting color, you really can't see it with how we folded it up. You really just can't see that red in there. So I went through the loop on my pom-pom. I'm going to go stitch through the top of my hat and then back through the loop on my pom-pom. I like to secure it twice. So I'm just going to go through that loop a second time, and then I'm going to take all my yarn ends and push them into the center of the hat and knot them and then weave them in. So once you take them to the center of the hat, you weave in all your yarn ends, then your hat will be complete. And so here is the final hat. I hope you like the tutorial. I hope you like the stitches in this. There is a matching scarf, which I will link in the corner if I can. And that is the finished item. So I hope you like the tutorial. And as always, thank you so much for watching.